of course, now I'd like to welcome again with Mr. Ramadan. Again, Mr. Ramadan is uh, an interpreter in African Union, African Parliament, and Al Jazeera Network Channel. Mr. Ramadan, can you unmute and introduce yourself to us again? My trainee is with you. They can ask you. We can discuss.
Hello. You can hear me, all of you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
How are you, Mr. Ramadan?
Yes, I'm very well, thanks. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you and appreciate hosting me.
Thank you.
And definitely we have enjoyed the lecture. It's very fruitful and very rich in content. I hope that everybody enjoyed like how I did.
Thank you. Okay, guys. So if you want to ask any question about the lecture, of course, and also we can now ask Mr. Ramadan. I will start with asking Mr. Ramadan. Okay, Mr. Ramadan, do you have you faced any of the challenges? First, I'd like you to introduce yourself again, because some people came late, and to tell me, have you faced any of the challenges we have talked about today in the conferences you're interpreting?
Yes, of course. Okay, first of all, my name is Ramadan Ahmed. I'm resident in 3 countries, or in 3 days. I'm resident in Dubai, Durban, and Doha. So these 3 cities are the 3 days. And I travel frequently to Dubai, in the Gulf generally. I cover events there, and I cover events mainly in Addis Ababa, as well as other African countries, and I'm always on demand in the African continent. So this is a very brief introduction to myself. I have been doing interpreting for the last, on full-time basis, of course, in the last 15 years. Previously, I used to be an employee, but within that status of employee, I used to do interpreting. But for the last 15 years, I have been full-time interpreter. Definitely, with regard to your question, interpreting is always full of challenges, and you have to develop your own strategies for how to deal with challenges, interpreting challenges. Among these challenges, something like the accent of the participants. Sometimes you face a very weird accents,
Yes.
and you need to figure out how to deal with these accents, and you have to be very attentive. Sometimes you get into an event of which you know no idea at all, and some clients are very secretive, very secretive, and they don't give you any document so that you can prepare yourself. So you just enter. The moment you enter, they give you, in fact, they bombard you with a lot of documents so that you can have a look at them on the spot. So it becomes very difficult. So you have to develop your own strategies on how to deal with these incidents. What I normally do is that when I come to the event, before the start of the event, I chat with some of the presenters. I have a few words with them, and it gives me an idea about their accent, their way of speaking, their you read the mind. The most important thing about interpreting is how to read the mind of the speaker. So if you manage to read the mind, meaning
very important.
you can be able to predict the ideas. So somebody speaks, he says one sentence. If you manage to read the mind, you can automatically predict the next sentence. So in that case, it will give you a state of relaxation, so that you can be able to express yourself very well in the target language.
Yes. Elsa with us wants to say something to you, Mr. Ramadan. Yes, Elsa?
Yes.
It's just that I totally agree with what Mr. Ramadan is saying, and indeed I had an experience about talking to the speakers. Indeed, I had a training. It was in Oman, I remember, and actually it was the American trainer who came to us and told us that sometimes they had some problems in especially it was maybe, I don't know if I'm mistaken, maybe it was in Africa, and so they didn't really understand the interpreters and the communication was really hard. And so the solution they came up was to come and talk to the interpreters, and actually it really helps a lot. So it's really, I can really relate to what Mr. Ramadan is saying, really. So, yes, as interpreters, we have those not only weird but ununderstandable accent at all.
Yes.
And yeah, we have to deal with that. We have to deal also with the unfamiliar topics. And just as what he was saying, um, there are some organizations who feel so secretive that and that they don't give you anything, not even the topic. And so I get a call. Well, it says, do you have some time to interpret for tomorrow from 9 to 3, for example? And so we have nothing, absolutely nothing, not even the location to look at. And so yes, these are really hard challenges to meet. But yeah, it is, like we say, our daily bread as interpreters. So we have to just keep up and just try and do our best. and
Mhm.
and afterwards we feel like, yeah, we're satisfied. Well, actually, with all these challenges, I could make it. So it's nice. It's really nice
Okay,
to
I
meet.
think I the answer to that question that you asked. Can I do that?
Of
Yes,
course.
yes, sure.
Okay. With regard to the Arabic interpreters or Arabic English interpreters, about 90% of the interpreters do not interpret into English. They interpret from English into Arabic. And the reason is very clear. And most of those interpreters who have not had the chance to live in an English-speaking country, it becomes very difficult for them to think in the language. So if you can't think in the language, it becomes very difficult for you to interpret it into it. And when I was listening to you speaking about how to learn terminology,
Mhm.
it was very impressive actually. Learning terminology in isolation of context is not that useful. What I advise is that when you learn new terminology, you better use monolingual dictionaries like Oxford Dictionary or Cambridge Dictionary or Merriam-Webster. These dictionaries give you the context of the terminology so that you can be able to visualize it. Because in English, you come across a lot of expressions, especially spoken English, not the written English. Spoken English, you come across a lot of expressions in which, if you think about words, you will get lost. Now, you need to think about the meaning, the general meaning, without focus on the words. And by so doing, you can be able to deduct the meaning of difficult words based on the context. Like, for instance, if you try to think about the expression like, we tried and it worked. We tried and it worked.
Mhm.
Or things, you need to figure out how it works. Now, if
Mhm.
you think about words, you won't make it. But if you think about
Yes.
meaning, you can easily think about it in the target language. يعني مثلا حاولنا ولم نوفق. شايف؟
Mhm.
حاولنا ولم نوفق. It is completely. It sounds like completely different terminology. You are using completely different terminology, but the meaning here is exactly the same. Yes, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think these are the challenges that I think interpreters need to to
Practice.
overcome how to think in the language. Now, how to think in the language means you have to try your best to symbolize the culture of the in which the language is spoken, and thankfully today we have the internet and we have YouTube, we have a lot of stuff on the internet that you can be able to see, to watch and to attend to, so that you can be able to get acquainted with the recipient culture, which is English culture, so that we can be able to translate from Arabic into English with some kind of ease. If there are any inquiries, I would be more than prepared to attend.
Yes, yes. Ola wants to say something also. Yes, Ola. Okay, Ola and then Hala. Ola, are you ready?
Yes, could I ask him something?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
First of all, welcome you here in this class, and we're glad to be our guest. And we would like to give us more tips in our career being interpreters in this field. Um, there is a question or inquiry about this career, like, is it right to deal with agents who are responsible for giving or just recommend or having a staff of interpreters under their own recommendation, or to work in the field in being a freelancer? Would you recommend us to be because the payment is different, and it is also kind of an issue to consider, because if you are working as an interpreter by your own self, your payment is going to be, let us say, higher than being with an agent. But if you prefer to be a freelancer, it takes you to get more acquaintances, to exert more effort, to pay a lot of money in order to commerce or to market your own self as an interpreter. How to make it fair in this kind of issue?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think it is a very interesting question. To become freelancer or to become employee, this is your question in summary. I prefer for beginners, those who are entering into the field, that they better exercise with agencies or become full-time employees somewhere until they are well established, because to establish yourself through the internet, you need some time. It is not something that you can do it overnight. And I'm afraid if you just jump into it, it's like jumping into the darkness. You might end up breaking your leg. So it's better for you to start with agencies, and from there you can be able to know the nitty-gritties of the business, and then you can be able to stand on your own. I personally do not advise somebody who is well established in the profession to become an employee, because being employee has a lot of negative aspects. It means you are enslaving yourself to somebody else. And the word is employee is a respectful word of saying a slave. Because
Yeah.
in the olden days, a slave is someone whose freedom was usurped, and because of that, he's given just peanuts to make him survive. The same thing. If you're an employee, you overwork yourself, and then at the end of the month, you are given just peanuts to make you just survive. So there's no difference at all. The best thing, especially with open spaces, I think an interpreter who is well established must be a freelancer. And there are so many freelance websites that you can be able to subscribe to, and then from there you can be able to receive offers from clients from different parts of the world. And today, after this COVID-19 pandemic, new developments have taken place in the profession, where now remote interpreting has become very rife,
Yeah.
and you need to train yourselves how to do remote interpreting from the comfort of your own room, your own house. So you don't have to travel, you don't have to, and you can be able to do that. So I advise those who are beginners in the field to start with agencies. But once you are established, quit and become independent.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Now Hala wants to say something.
Hello, Mr. Ramdan. It's a pleasure having you with us. The point you were talking about the language and so on, because you said like usually the Arabic interpreter translates from English into Arabic, right? I would like to know like
I can't
sometimes
hear. If you can just speak to the microphone, please.
Can't you hear me? Can't you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, now you can hear. Yes.
Okay.
Go
First
ahead.
of all, welcome to our lecture. It's nice having you. It's our
Thank you.
pleasure. And
Thanks.
I would like to ask a question. Like you said, like we usually like 90% interpreters, like or the Arabic English interpreter, we interpret from English to Arabic, right? But in when we do vice versa from Arabic into English, I think like at the beginning as interpreters sometimes they think in their mind in Arabic, then they translate it into English, like whatever, like the people like when Arabic speakers is talking or something, they start thinking about what he said in Arabic and they translate it into English. They don't think in English quickly in their mind and translate it, and this is a problem, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, because I remember in college long time ago, they like our professor used to say, don't think in Arabic, think in English, which is make it easier for you. Because if you start translating in your mind in Arabic, you're going to have a lot of mistakes. So
Yeah, that's correct. That's exactly what happens, in fact. And this is what the major problem that Arabic interpreters are facing at the moment. I have seen some of them, even the African Union, when I work with them, they prefer taking from English to Arabic, and then they I end up, because most of the people they don't speak. They take from English to Arabic, of course. Attendees are English speakers, but when there is a workshop, for example, and workshop the attendees are from an Arab country, it becomes very difficult for for one person actually to take the whole session. So it happens. So thinking in the language is the key to interpreting. If you can't think in the language, it becomes very difficult. Not only difficult in the sense that you can't be able to translate from the into the foreign language, but even your comprehension of the foreign language becomes very difficult, because language itself is levels. You got registers, very high register and low register. In the high register, when you have intellectuals having meetings, then you have to pretend that you are intellectual, and you have to be, or otherwise you can't be able to render the meaning. That's why I always encourage interpreters to become somebody who is highly intellectual. You have to be highly intellectual. You have to read, you have to attend, to listen, to watch, and enrich your knowledge so that you can be able to fit in every situation. So thinking in the language is very important, and above all, you need to understand the different registers of language. Very important.
Yes, and also
thank
saying
you.
language is a culture. Yeah, yes.
I remember, for example, if I have to add something, I was covering an event in Dubai about 3 years ago. It was the event was about, I think, the state of law, something like that, the state of law, where lawyers and law practitioners came from all over the world and convened to discuss issues pertaining to the state of law. And the terminology that they used was very, very high, very high register. My colleague with me was just a beginner, and she couldn't be able to cope. Taking from English to Arabic was difficult, let alone taking from Arabic to English. It was very difficult. When you talk, you have to make sense. In terms of sentence structure, you have to make sense. In terms of terminology that you use, you can't expect the speaker to speak high register, and then when you translate or interpret, you interpret in low register. It becomes very awkward because concepts, when rendering concepts, it is completely different from when you are rendering just a meaning of objects. It's like somebody who's like, we went to the market and we bought this and we sold that and we need this. And now to translate this, you don't need to think about it at all. But when it comes the rendering the meaning of concepts, that's the challenge. And if you are not well established, please don't embarrass yourself. You have to peruse the content of the conference first before accepting the offer, or otherwise you will do a mess. We also need to work with our colleagues who are established. It's better, and it is recommended that when you enter into a conference room, you have to make sure that your colleague is well established, and don't feel shy to learn from your colleague. And all of us will learn from our colleagues. All of us will learn. Don't be shy at all. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramadan, for your attendance today with us, and thanks for your for answering the questions clearly, and
My pleasure.
for your experience and knowledge. I see that a lot of people want to ask more questions, but we can have more and more meetings with you if you don't mind.
No problem at all. Welcome at any time.
Thank you so much. And now we are at the end of our session. Before I give the microphone to Mr. Mansour, I want to say special thanks to Reem Mohsen for delivering her assignment, first one, and for her the quality of her shadowing is actually perfect. She's got 95%, and also Ghazal. And thanks for Elsa for her shadowing here publicly. She's perfect. That's all. And now, Mr. Mansour, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hava. Welcome on board, Mr. Ramadan. I'm happy to have you here today and listening and watching with us, and also sharing your experience regarding the 3 continents, maybe African one, maybe in Asia and in Qatar. So really, I wanted to ask you one more question for your live streaming or live media coverage. Have you did it before or not? In Jazeera?
Why?
In Al Jazeera?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Many times.
Yes,
what the most challenge you have faced in this regard?
You mean to be broadcast live?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. When you are thinking about how many millions might be watching you, definitely it gives you a very it is a very prestigious moment.
Yep.
But at the same a lot of veneration, of course. So you have that kind of veneration and fear. So you assume that everybody is listening to you, and you have to make sense in every sentence that you say, and make sure that no negative criticism that might be left in the comments on the website. So all this definitely a big challenge. But for Al Jazeera, actually, most of the stuff is it is news or events that are taking place. I covered for Al Jazeera Forum. You heard of Al Jazeera Forum? It's an annual event for which intellectuals are invited from all over the world, and they would deliberate for about 4 days. This is a very highly intellectual event that if you are not well established, you can't be able to attend that.
Yeah.
most cases you have to translate into English, and when translate into English, then you have recipients who are think tank institutions.
Yeah.
So you have to be at that level. If otherwise, you'll end up in a lot of mess. So it's a big
Okay.
challenge, definitely.
Good. Yes, it's a big challenge, and the stress
Yeah,
and the fears. Yes, that's good.
definitely, a lot of stress, and you come out sweating.
Mhm.
But through the course of when you attend a first session, definitely it experience that. But when the sessions continue,
Yeah.
and then you get used to the speakers. Of course, the speakers come from all over the world, and they come from different English-speaking backgrounds, and their accents.
Yeah.
Sometimes, some Indian accents are very
Yeah,
horrible.
I know.
Yeah, some
Most,
people
yeah.
come from Latin America, for example. They have very horrible accents, and you
Yeah.
have to accommodate all that.
Okay.
So it's a challenge,
Yes.
but we did well. We
Great.
didn't receive any
Great.
complaint. Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramadan, as time is up and we don't have a lot of time today,